Dork Dancing and founder Ethan Levy, next on City Corner. Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson and welcome to City Corner. Dork Dancing is an international, judgment-free dance movement with a serious mission, supporting mental health and breaking down stigma, all through joy, movement, and community. I'm joined today by the founder of Dork Dancing, Ethan Levy, who's gonna tell us all about Dork Dancing. We've got it on your t-shirt everywhere. I'm so excited to talk to you about this movement, an international movement that you've created. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
I know, well, so even just looking at your t-shirt, and we're gonna get into all these like great photos and video that we have, I think what's so interesting is we spend so much time in our lives trying not to be a dork, to use that term, but you've sort of flipped that with this movement. Why?
Yeah, so when it comes to dancing, there's a lot of excuses that people maybe come up with for reasons not to dance. And one of the prime ones is maybe I might look like a dork, or I might look silly, or I might look kind of make a fool of myself. But by calling it dork dancing, you're sort of beating them to the punch and saying that's the point. The purpose is to let loose, be silly, not care what other people think. And so dork really helps dissolve some of the barriers or excuses that people might have for reasons not to dance.
Got it. We're gonna start, this is one of those things that's so visual. We're gonna pull up some footage of a dork dancing event that was down at the St. Louis Arch that you did not too long ago.
Sure.
And so for someone who's gonna be seeing this for the first time, as we cut away to that, what actually happens when one shows up to participate in dork dancing? Like, is there music and instruction? How does it go?
Sure. So in the beginning, we like to start our events with a warm-up where people take turns introducing dorky moves. And basically, there's no right or wrong way to move your body. And the idea is just to get out of your head, into your body, and enjoy the freedom of moving however. And so people take turns. They might introduce themselves, their names, a dorky move, everyone repeats. And then we go in a circle. And then by the end, people are a little more loosened up. They've learned anywhere from 5 to 15 different dorky moves, depending on how many people show up. And I, at the very end of the warm-up, remind them or congratulate them, you're officially a dork dancer. You know how to dork dance now. You have 12 different moves that you can pull from, and you can do that move the entire time if that's what's most comfortable. But you're also open and welcome to try to discover and embrace your inner dork and try to move however you want. And so it's a process of letting down those thoughts of self-consciousness, and the warm-up helps dissolve some of those thoughts. But yeah, we just turn on the music. I bring a Bluetooth speaker. I connect it to Spotify. I usually have some of my favorite songs on the playlist, but also take song requests. So if anyone wants to listen to a particular song, it's sort of, we collect songs in that way and try to get a good mix of music.
So you're also sort of like the DJ too. It's like DJ, founder, executive director, DJ.
Right, yeah.
I do want to bring this into, you've got your headband on. We're talking about how this is supporting mental health, but also breaking down stigma. And as we look at photos, there's a more personal story, behind this. And I hope it's okay if you don't mind speaking. You've spoken openly about bipolar disorder and your diagnosis with that. So where were you sort of in your life when this dance and movement became a path forward for you?
Yeah, so I got my diagnosis as bipolar when I was age 19, and I'm 32 now, and since then I've visited the psychiatric hospital 5 times in my journey, and it was after the second time, after my second hospitalization, that I discovered the simplicity of dance in order to feel better. And it was a private moment in my apartment where I just turned on the music. And at that point, I hadn't danced for about a decade during my teenage years. It wasn't really part of my expression. And I got socially anxious at like school dances and didn't really let myself loose. Or during college, I would need the facilitation of maybe alcohol to help me let loose and things. But yeah, I was just in the privacy of my own room and turned on the music and just started moving my body. And my roommate thought it was funny, and he he joined, and then we invited more people from our apartment complex to join. And we saw in that moment, I was like, wow, dance is a really powerful and simple tool that can help bring people together, have a good time. And, you know, if you're in my journey, I've thought a lot about can I give back or contribute in making an impact, and just like dance just kind of like fell in front of me. I was like, wow, this is simple, this is powerful, and it helps bring experiences of joy.
It's really interesting. I mean, you've done this, and we're going to get into the international aspect. I mean, this is something that you've created, this movement. I appreciate you sharing that, because what it sort of you're alluding to is sort of making yourself vulnerable, putting yourself out there actually to be free, and and then make that transformation from that, where people won't judge you. You have an interesting, I'm going to bring in Vietnam, and you can talk the story. We have these great photos that we're going to start looking at. Talk about, if I'm correct, that this is when Dork Dancing started during the pandemic in Vietnam. As we look at these photos, tell me more about the origin of why there, and was it in connection to what you just described in your apartment, or was it a different time?
So my dancing journey was a slow one that's evolved over time. So that apartment moment was back in 2016. At a moment in 2018 where I posted a video of myself dancing online, someone called me a dork. I thought that was funny, and the name Dork Dancing was born. And so I had it as just a private sort of practice, and it was a hobby of mine. But it wasn't until COVID-19 that I decided to more intentionally introduce Dork Dancing as a dance mental health campaign. And I went out in public and invited strangers to join me. I was going to dance every day at 5 p.m. at the beach in Da Nang, Vietnam, and I can explain how I got there. It was sort of a free public resource, and people, at first it was just one person, then 2 people, then 3, then 5, then 7, then 15, then 20, and 30. And so more and more people joined over time, and it was really rewarding, fulfilling, and surprising to see the growth of people, strangers, dancing out in public in the name of mental health, joy, and sharing good experiences through dance.
Do you think that something is happening when it's specifically as a group? Because belonging is another part of, I know one of these pillars with Dork Dancing and community.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you feel happens where it's versus, someone solo versus a group of people coming together, just letting their guard down? I mean, what's happening in that act there?
Yeah, so there's a process of shared vulnerability, and everyone has a different level of comfort zone going into it, but it is a common experience to come feeling a bit anxious or uncomfortable, and it's really fun to witness those anxieties dissolve throughout the process of Dork Dancing. And because people are sharing this process of vulnerability, it's a really unique way to connect with other people and feel a stronger sense of connection and community, because we went through this together. And after a while, a lot of people make it a habit, and they just keep on coming, and that's really fun to interact with people in that way, just dancing every week. So yeah, community across differences is a really big and special part about the community, because a lot of people, dork is kind of this very vague idea and word that a lot of people can identify with or choose to identify with. So the expression of dork comes in a lot of different shapes and forms.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, it's interesting because it's when I watch, we've got some video, and I hope we have time to run it. It's from Dork Dancing that was started in Denver. So, I mean, you have Dork Dancing here in St. Louis, Vietnam that we were looking at. We'll roll some B-roll quickly of Denver, also in Portland. So as we're looking at it, I think what's so interesting, and we kind of keep repeating this, 2 sides to it. It's joyful from the outside, but then obviously, as you're saying, people are sort of carrying depression and loneliness and anxiety and grief when they're coming together. So, I mean, how do you find that sort of balance of making room for both?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So because it's a non-judgmental space, we accept any expression of anyone's presence. So if someone's not really feeling that good, but they just want to be around us because it can remind them of hopeful ideas, or just feel good being around that type of energy. But yeah, even during moments of grief or depression or distress or anxiety, I think it's really important to give yourself permission to experience moments of joy or moments of connection, even in the midst of hardship. And so people, there's so many different backgrounds and stories and things that people have experienced that we carry with us every day throughout our normal routine, and people show up to Dork Dancing in that same way. And so, there's not many rules or regulations to Dork Dancing, so you can also just if you don't feel like dancing, you can have conversations with your neighbors and just say, this is what I've been going through throughout the week or throughout the month or however long, and that conversation can be really healing too.
Especially too, the repetition as you continue to do this, in different cities and meeting the same people or seeing each other over and over again. We have a lot to get into. We're going to have to take a quick break. Before we go to break, I'm going to put up a couple graphics on your screen so you can learn more. The first is really, as we've described, what Dork Dancing is. And so it's a judgment-free dance movement and mental health advocacy campaign where celebration and activism meet for a healthier, happier, and more harmonious world. And this was founded by Ethan Levy, who's here with us in studio. If you want to learn more, hashtag Dork Dancing across all social media platforms, but Dork Dancing for Mental Health, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dork Dancing, or visit the website dorkdancing.org. But we're going to have more with Ethan when we return, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Did you know that you can watch STL TV on your smart TV? That's right. With the new STL TV Now app, you can watch STL TV at home without a cable subscription. And that includes our live broadcast channel as well as video on demand content. We have apps for Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. You probably have at least one of those at home, right? But this one is a Fire TV. Now listen, it is really easy to get started. Just find the App Store on your TV, then search for STL TV Now. Select it and click to install. And in just a few seconds, you are enjoying STL TV's great programming such as City Corner, Inside Sports, City Government, and public interest coverage. Or, my personal favorite, In the Kitchen.
I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to City Corner. Today we're talking about Dork Dancing. It's an international judgment-free dance movement, and I'm joined by the founder, Ethan Levy. Ethan, thank you again for being here. There was this picture that we threw up earlier. I'm not sure if we can find it though, but you for a while had half of a beard.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's in one of the photos we have. We could probably dig around for it. And you wore that, if I read correctly, for more than 2 years. And so I wanted to, have you talk about how humor can be this sort of starting conversation to talk about mental health.
Yeah, of course. So typically when we talk about mental health, there can be a sort of heaviness around it and with the stigma and everything. So with Dork Dancing or the half beard, it's a different sort of approach. It captures your attention, you give an experience of joy or curiosity, and then afterwards, you can meet more in the middle to talk about harder things. So opening up with those more warm feelings or, using humor as a tactic to start more meaningful conversation is something that I like to do.
And you mentioned something earlier about, I thought it was interesting about positive psychology, and I had read in your bio that you had studied positive psychology and the relationship between movement and well-being with the dance psychology professor, Peter Levy, who's also known as Dr. Dance.
Yes.
Can you talk a bit more about that and how that research helped you with sort of the development and ongoing development of Dork Dancing?
Yeah, so it was really intriguing to discover that there's a field called dance psychology, and which is basically the study of movement and how it affects the way that you think and behave and the influences between them. And basically, Dr. Dance or Peter Levy has done extensive research to discover the extent to which dance benefits the mind and the body. And there's so much research behind the benefits of dance that it really validates the idea of the concept of what we're doing. And so studying under him for a certificate program was really rewarding. He's written a book called The Dance Cure, which goes into the benefits of dance. And there's another book called like Dancing is the Best Medicine, or The Joy of Movement. So, and now with AI, you can just search benefits of dance, and there's also an intuitive nature to it. But Peter Lovett is an influential figure in my life, and it's amazing that the work that he's done and to be able to absorb some of those studies has been quite rewarding.
I mean, I think too, and I wanted to bring that up because it's like, this isn't just something that like is spontaneous. Like it's very clever what you've done, but it's in a very impactful way at the same time, right? It's not just like spontaneously like, hey, let's all go out and dance. I mean, this is really thought out, and it's operating, as we said, internationally in Vietnam, you know, in Denver, in Portland, here in St. Louis. Yeah. And so there's more to it, and I think, and you continue to evolve that. As we just look at a few more pictures, I know I've read that you've traveled to 45 countries. So 45 countries. We talked about all the different chapters just now that we've looked at. And so I was curious, thinking, what have you learned that in all these different communities that people really have in common through this movement?
Through Dork Dancing, or just in
through
general?
Dork Dancing,
Through Dork Dancing, yeah.
Or in general, if you want to mention it, but what you
I think the diversity of, which I was mentioning earlier, the diversity of how Dork expresses itself. So what's been really rewarding is creating an inclusive space for really anyone to dance. So across the lifespan, from really young people to elderly, but also dancing with folks who have disabilities, whether that's physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, emotional disabilities. It's been a really rewarding to witness the intersection of these expressions. And we've Dork danced with folks who are deaf and hard of hearing. You can dance even if you aren't listening to music, through visual interpretation, visual expression, feeling the vibration of music. We've danced with victims of Agent Orange. There's the interesting history with the Vietnam War and being there as an American, and the intergenerational trauma and things that has expressed itself. So that was really meaningful. And then dancing with other folks who have maybe different types of disabilities. So that's been really meaningful.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a phrase that I was reading on your website, and it really spoke to me. Joy is an act of resistance. And it really stuck with me, because I think you can get so overwhelmed with life, and being a part of this world with all that's going on. Finding true joy can actually be quite hard. And so I was wondering where, that came from, and resistance to what, you sort of define it as, and why you included that in kind of part of this overall brand and the movement.
Yeah. So I think I've combined the terms joy, justice, where there's this belief that everyone should have access to joyful experiences. Not only should we feel safe, but we should be able to experience these emotional highs. And thinking across different identities, maybe it's not as easy to experience those things. And so if you create an inclusive environment where everyone dances as equals, it makes it easier to experience those things. And we've also danced with the unhoused population in Denver, and those moments are really meaningful. And so it humanizes, I think dancing humanizes us and reminds us of our shared humanity. And so resist the status quo, I think, is something that I think about. Because there are so many things that aren't going well in today's society. And so using these sorts of experiences as sources of strength can be a helpful reminder that we do deserve these like to feel good and in connection in community.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's really stuck with me. I keep kind of coming back to it, and even in preparation for the show, I did want to show, we've got some B-roll of a Zoom Dork Dancing session, and I actually do want to play this one for a little clip. I'm giving some time to our team to prep it up with audio, because so much of what we've talked about, people aren't hearing actually music. So I'm going to ask you about this and how this came together and people getting together, even via Zoom. But we're going to cue this up now. You're going to listen to, or see, I should say, a small snippet, and we'll play some. Hopefully, does this have audio on it? No, maybe it doesn't. We won't. We'll just do the B-roll of this. Tell me though, this is even during the winter, because you have get-togethers and people can't come, can't necessarily come out, in the middle of winter. So you do these via Zoom?
Yeah, so I currently organize Dork Dancing every Wednesday evening for people who aren't physically in one of our locations.
Okay.
So it makes it more accessible for anyone to join. And then, it's particularly convenient during other times that might make dancing out in public a little less accessible. So Zoom is, you can have your camera on or off. You're in the privacy of your own room. And so it's a different experience, of course, but you still get to enjoy it.
I thought it was when I was watching some of it, I loved it just because you're actually a very good DJ. I will side note to that, because I was really enjoying the playlist that you had for that.
Yeah.
We have this one graphic that talks about sort of like the values too that sort of incorporate out of this. And I know, as we pull that up and bring it to you, joy is one of them. And this kind of is your vision, your mission statement, your values to service, play, inclusion, community, all this. I just wanted people to see, because I just think how this is all put together. You've done such an excellent, job to, about putting this all together and how it's impacted so many people. But I was going to ask you, what does sort of joy mean to you now, like through this experience?
Yeah. Joy is a really interesting, I think, in part because of the movie Inside Out, that's educated my relationship to joy, in the sense that we don't always need to experience it, and accepting all of our emotions and giving space for all of our emotions is important. Joy can be elusive at times, but what I've discovered through dance and through Dork Dancing is you can also manufacture it. So through your actions and through which behaviors or habits you're trying to form. And so that's a real power, to be able to manufacture experiences of joy for yourself. And so just finding what works for you. For me, it's dancing. The dork concept can expand beyond dancing. In Vietnam, we had like dork art, dork dinners, dork games, dork sports. And so like the dork mindset, I think one way or another, we're all doing things for our mental health, even if we aren't saying that or acknowledging it. What we like to do, we're just trying to stay sane and trying to, help ourselves feel better at the end of the day. So.
And I want to, before we wrap things up, conclude with, I had read that you were saying this is, in your life, you've done so much. You've traveled to 45 countries. You also teach English as a second language, all these things you've done. Why Dork Dancing is the thing you're most proud of? Yeah,
I guess it feels kind of like my baby, given that, or my special sauce or my unique way to contribute. And it creates a space where people can, just be themselves. And how much I've witnessed, I hear stories of how it's impacted people. And so that keeps on fueling my desire to keep on going and to keep on contributing in that way. And so I think that really helps inspire me. And so there's other ways to engage in the world, but Dork Dancing is my addiction per se. So
and your contribution to the world. It's really and really to the world, because it continues to grow. It's wonderful. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. I really I had seen stuff about this and read about it. Friends had reached out and shared about it. I'm so glad we got you in studio to talk about it. So thank you for being here.
So
on the screen, we're going to put up some information for you, how you can learn more about Dork Dancing, this judgment-free dance movement and mental health advocacy campaign that Ethan started. That's the information there about Dork Dancing. And then for Dork Dancing for Mental Health, check out Dork Dancing's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page, or head to dorkdancing.org. I'm gonna get ready, first of all, and to say thank you at home for joining us as we run our closing credits for STL TV for the show. We're gonna have Ethan dance our way out. So thank you for joining us, and keep it right here on STL TV Experience St. Louis.